if you want me to act like this, that's cool, but I'm also gonna act like this, and you have to accept that's part of me.
Hello, and welcome to the Trip Sitting Podcast, where we explore what it means to be human. This week's guest, we have an old college buddy of mine, Daveon, who found this page and reached out to me and just said, "Hey, would love to come on the podcast." And he gave me something really interesting to talk about as well. So I thought, fuck it, let's do it. I never really thought that me and him would be here today. We legitimately had not talked before this podcast since college. And I'm so glad that he hit me up. We had a really amazing conversation, and he had a lot of points that helped me think in a different way, which I really, really appreciate a lot. So I hope you all enjoy this episode. But before you do, if you could go on whatever podcast streaming platform that you are listening to this on and rate this podcast and give it 5 stars so we can get in front of more people, I would really, really appreciate that. And make sure that you're following the Trip Sitting Podcast at tripsitting.blog on Instagram and TikTok. And then last thing, if you're not subscribed to my Trippy Monday newsletter that I send out once a week that just goes over 3 things that caught my attention or that I learned from the past week, make sure you go on my website, tripsitting.blog, and subscribe to the newsletter there. Now, here is Daveon. So Daveon, you and I, we know each other from college.
Yeah.
And I think it's probably safe to say, at least for me, actually, I really don't know, given that this is probably the first conversation we've had since college, not through Instagram. But I feel like I'm definitely a different person since then. Do you think that you're a different person since then?
Not really.
Not really.
Well, honestly, I don't know if it's a compliment or not. Everyone usually just says like, "Oh, you don't really change that much." I'm like, I think I'm okay with that.
hmm
Uh, I think from a young age, I've always like one of the best things. What is a compliment is that like I've always had like a specific assuredness of like who I kind of am as a person, and like that's kind of like what's made my personality more like even killed throughout life. First of all, I don't
hmm
believe people will actually ever change. I like I think like everyone has their personality kind of like mostly set in stone, and then what they do, like you know how they say like a tiger stripes never changes and shit.
hmm
What they do is that like certain qualities of them will like get higher and certain qualities will get lower depending on like how you move through life. Like a
hmm
person who has like anger issues is always going to have anger issues, but maybe when they were young and they first like get that anger, like they don't know how to respond, but as they get older, like because they've been with their self so long, that same thing is probably gonna annoy them. But instead of like reacting to it, now they know, okay, maybe I shouldn't. Maybe I should walk away from this situation and then come back to it. So
Yeah.
like they didn't really change. They just like understand who they are more. And I felt
Interesting.
like I've always understood myself as my own character. If anything, I've just had to like tweak certain things a little bit more or less depending on like what the circumstances need.
Interesting. I have kind of a different take on this. Like I do believe that as you grow up, you're sort of given a lot of these baseline qualities, and these are always going to follow you for the rest of your life. But at some point you do get to choose whether or not you want to keep these certain qualities about yourself. Using anger as an example, I used to be a really fucking angry kid. Like I definitely had like pretty bad anger management issues. I blow up on like the smallest little things, just get mad and like it ruin my whole fucking day. And even growing up, like throughout college, like I just like get angry at like a lot of really little things. And it wasn't actually until my first experience with acid that like I noticed myself just kind of walking around and thinking about things, and people would say things to me or things would happen. And like it was the first time in my life that I was like, I I get to choose right now how I react to this. Like I can choose to react or just basically not react, or like I can choose if I want to react in an angry manner or just laugh it off. And I mean, everything to me was funny as fuck at that point, just because I was on acid. I was like, damn, like this is funny. Like I don't have to be angry all the time. Like I can just kind of brush it off, and like, it is what it is. And I was in that state, and I knew nothing of like actual integration back then. So then, once I was back to normal for the next couple weeks, like, like I had that thought, like I get to choose, but then I just slipped back into my old patterns, just because that's the default right there. But over time, like with integration, and as long as like you bring conscious awareness to that, you can completely change that, like over time. Again, like it's still always going to be there, like you're going to remember it. But like I don't get angry at really like anything anymore, like truly angry. I can't tell you the last time that I actually got angry or something.
So you don't think nothing can push your buttons? 'Cause the
I
way I
mean,
like,
I definitely they can. Like, I mean, I'm not gonna pretend like they can, but like it for me to just react angrily, like I think I'll always kind of notice like, oh shit, I'm getting angry right now. And I mean, kind of like you said, I'll be able to remove myself from that situation before I start reacting to it.
yeah. See, the thing is, like, because we are like two
But
people
anger's not a bad
naturally.
thing, you know?
It's nothing wrong with anger, but we're like two people. We are the body, and then we are the ones experiencing the body with the awareness
Hmm.
of the body. So, like, when I mean like we don't change, like our body, like certain stuff is just going to get under our skin.
Yeah.
Like we might get a callus after a while just from hearing it, but like if it annoys us, it's kind of gonna annoy us. And then like our awareness is us noticing like, do I need to act on this? Because like your
Hmm.
emotions are these just random things that just come into you and come out of you at like it just
Yeah.
happens. We have no
Yeah.
control of it. They just happen. But like so like because of that, I feel like we're never really changing. It's just our awareness of what's happening with our body that's changed, and then we're like, okay, I don't have to just immediately react.
Hmm.
That's like I feel like the difference of like how people say it's changed, but like even in those situations, I always think of like this thing called flow, in which is about like when you're in the zone, essentially, if we're like using like sports terms, when you're just like doing the best you can at the current moment without like using much energy or thought. I feel multiple people can enter the flow at multiple times during their life, throughout like lives. It happens randomly. If you're in like if you like, you can make it happen more depending like through like great practice and slight anxiety, like and like when they come together, makes you in this flow state. But that's you at the peak of who you are. So if that happens all the fucking time throughout your life, and this is peak you, and peak you is the best version of you, and as you get older, I believe what happens is that you're allowed to enter your flow state easier because you experience your pitfalls. So you know, like I to activate myself, this is what I do.
Hmm.
But like you could have always done that.
Yeah.
So like
It always
you,
was there. It's just
it was you were
you just
always
didn't have the
there.
conscious awareness of it.
Yeah. So like nothing changed. All you did was like, oh, you've been doing that before. You've always been this person.
Yeah.
Now you're just this person more times.
Yeah.
So like I'm like, yeah, I don't think like that's why like when like you can see good potential in people, or like I call people like certain interesting. I'm like, oh, you're kind of
Hmm.
interesting because I'm like I could see like, okay, you be entering this straight flow state when you're on your shit right now, and like
Hmm.
I fuck with that. Also,
So,
so
I'm curious, what made you want to hop on this podcast and like speak your mind?
I love speaking my mind, and
Okay.
I don't do it enough because one, I don't like. I like talking, but I'm not going to be on a soapbox because as I am, I'm just chilling. But if we could talk about something interesting and there's a reason behind it and I have a platform to do it, why the fuck
Hmm.
wouldn't I?
So what? So
Plus, I
so
want
so
to
the thing
see
you.
what your whole deal was, and I'm like, okay, well, like, okay, I wonder how this conversation is gonna go. So I like
Yeah,
to.
no, I've got truly no idea, but no, but it's fun, man. It's I never would have like when you started following me, or like when you hit me up on Instagram like the first time, I was like, damn, Daveon, like my perception of you back in college was, I mean, we just both knew each other like just from partying. Like that was pretty much it. And so, to even have you be like saying things and like thinking of like, higher consciousness and all that, I was like, damn, Davon, like shit, I didn't realize that. So I was like excited.
I've always been like this. It's just like, honestly, I always think like I have like two like type of mindsets, which is kind of a situation that people get in trouble with me. Like I always have my frat boy mindset, and then I have my
Hmm.
scholar mindset,
Hmm.
and they are both big parts of who I am.
Yeah.
What happens in like situations, like some people either want one or the other, and I'm like, okay, I'm gonna like if you want me to act like this, that's cool, but I'm also gonna act like this, and you have to accept
Yeah.
that's a part of me, and vice versa. So like a bunch of people may just know me half of the time from half of the stuff I'm doing. It's
Yeah.
just like that's why I love like after parties, like after a party when everything's just chilling and like there's still people there and like everyone's half tired and that's when like you have the best fucking conversations.
Oh, for sure.
I fuck with
You're
those
not
shit.
just up all the time. But so something that you did want to talk about before we decided we were going to record this was like the idea of comfort. Um, and it's actually really funny because like we've probably talked about that like I don't know like 1 or 2 months ago or something, just because I was working through my whole backlog, and like at the time that wasn't something that was prevalent in my life, but like right now, like even in just the past week, the idea of comfort has just come to the forefront of my mind and what I'm working on, and I've like reflected on it quite a bit. So it's interesting that now we're recording this when we had that, like when we had that idea a while ago, and how that's actually something that's really prevalent in my life, because I feel like I've been getting too comfortable, and I feel like I haven't been pushing myself, and I haven't been, really doing the things that I want to do for me. And I think that's out of comfort. Like I am comfort. We want to be comfortable. It's very natural for us to want to do that. So once we get in that comfort state, unless you really realize that, it could be really easy to just fall into these patterns of comfort that eventually you do outgrow, but then you're still in them. So it kind of creates this internal tension. But I want to
Yes.
hear some of your thoughts.
I see. I think I was thinking about this because it was like life begins at the end of the comfort zone. But as I was trying to figure out the definition of what I think comfort is, and I was asking a bunch of people like get what they're saying, I don't believe that's the proper way of understanding comfort. See, I feel like no matter what, we're always seeking comfort. And it's not about like getting out of our comfort zone, it's seeking a specific comfort that we have in our own heads. And it's about like, as you said, you're having this internal struggle with yourself. So you're not truly comfortable because comfortable is the fact that you're like, it's I asked my therapist because I was like trying to figure out more definition. He was like, you could probably describe comfort more by the lack of something than its actual definition. So it's the lack of anxiety, the lack of like this building like strive to do this or this and that. Like you're not comfortable right now and you want to get comfort because you encapsulated what makes you comfortable as like I need to go to the next step to like progress my life.
Hmm.
What you are probably in right now, you're just in like it's this thing that like the brain does to keep us safe. Once we understand like this stretch like schedule and like I do this to get done and I know I can live this way and be
Hmm.
perfectly like content and there's not going to be anything that's truly going to harm me. That's like how the body like gets in a state when like I'm okay with just going through the motions now because as
Hmm.
our brains work, it's always there to protect us from outside forces and anything that's new to us is technically something we don't know about, so it could possibly harm us. It's the unknown.
Yeah.
And because of
It's the fear of the
that,
unknown.
Yeah, it's the fear of the unknown, and because of that fear, we get content, and we have to move out of that contentness. But
Hmm.
it's not truly that it's not that you're comfortable. It's that you're uncomfortable, and that's why you're having that cognitive dissonance in
Yeah.
yourself, which is like the beliefs that you have about yourself and the actions that you are truly like displaying are not syncing up right now, and that's giving you a
Yeah.
sense of anxiety, and that is making you uncomfortable. But when you're trying to seek that specific place, you're trying to get back to like, me as a person, I want to do this, this, and this to make myself be like this, and this. And that's your comfort stage. So I always think we're seeking
Yeah.
comfort. We're always trying to go more towards comfort.
Yeah.
And
I think
like,
that once you get into that comfort state, though, is the thing. Like, even once you achieve that, which, again, I don't really think it's ever something you truly achieve, because once you get to like what's comfortable for me right now isn't is probably not what's going to be comfortable for me a year from now. So like I can get to that state of more comfort, and then the mind is going to find a way to find something else that, like, oh, this is going to be even more comfortable, so now we need to move towards that. Because I was even thinking, like, yeah, I was even reflecting on trip sitting. Like I always said, once I started this, I'm like, I do this for me. Like I don't do this to like reach an audience. I don't do this for other people to agree with me or disagree with me, like to poke stick. Like I don't really give a shit. Like I do this for me because I enjoy it. And I kind of realized that over maybe the last month, 2 months or whatever, like I hit 1,000 followers on Instagram, which I'm like, again, like social media is fake, none of that shit matters. But I think deep down I was like, damn, like that's actually kind of a milestone for me. And I think I'm starting to make content that I think people will enjoy more. And that was the stuff that I was posting, and not making the content that like I truly believe in and want to post, and like don't give a fuck if anybody fucks with whatsoever. And that's the stuff that I want to be making. And the right people are just going to follow it, and the people that don't fuck with it are not going to follow it, and that's totally okay. Like I'm not doing this for followers or any of that. I'm doing this to reach the right people that it's supposed to reach. And so just balancing that in a sense of, again, like and it's all just happening subconsciously too. Like that's why it's about bringing conscious awareness to the things that you are doing in your life, to the way that you react to things, whether you get angry, to am I comfortable, am I uncomfortable, what can I do to move towards that comfort state.
it's definitely true because like, if you don't, like, you'll just keep going, and going. You have to always like step back a
And then
little
you don't
bit.
know why too. And then like, then 10 years later you find out, well, I just did all that shit for nothing. Like that was my
Yeah.
experience with ayahuasca. It's like, I mean, I used to work in the corporate life, and just trying to make money and thinking that, like, oh, I need to work for a startup, and then the startup needs to get sold, and then you need to have money. And like I never truly thought, like, and then what? Like what like what actually brings me like internal happiness, like after all of that? So all of those things could have happened. I would have been right back in that same spot of not actually knowing who I was and chasing this thing for no reason other than somebody, mainly my parents and society, told me that this is something that I should be chasing.
That's kind of a problem with society in general because like we never like they never give you enough time to like for you to step back and like, do I actually want to do this, or am I just following this pathway that like has already been set out for me? And like they
Hmm.
made it so easy, like you do this, you do this, you do this, you get like this. That's what your life is. You get kids around this time period, like yada yada. Yeah, you're fine. American life. But like, and that's what a problem with a bunch of like generational situations are now, just because like of how you've grown up and like how actually like different levels of comfort is. Like when like one thing that happens when you get very comfortable, like you actually start looking more internally on yourself because the rest of your life you're not fighting anything anymore. You're not like you don't have to go and like make sure like I
You're not
gotta
in
get the
survival
food on the
mode
table.
anymore.
Yeah, you're not in your survival mode. That's like how a lot of like generations go because like usually the older generations have higher survival modes, so like they
Hmm.
haven't really been in touch with themselves because like they didn't have time for that. They had to like
Yeah.
do it.
It's hard for me, like, kind of on that note, like, I'm I'm very, very different from my family. I was even having this conversation with somebody the other day about how, like, my family still doesn't quite understand this. And then they're like, okay, listen, like, you're kind of asking a lot now from them to be able to be none of them have ever done any psychedelics. And like, this is my entire life. So like, you're like, what? First off, I get that. But like, my, my grandparents, let's talk there, generational trauma exists, but they had to deal with the fucking Holocaust. Like, we're Jewish, and like that was their childhood growing up in those times. So they didn't have time to think of these things that I get to think about. So just coming at it from that way and realizing like, okay, I'm very grateful that I get to think about this, and it's not it's not their fault. Like, it's not like they are just so in their minds, but like they were truly in like survival mode for almost all of their child lives.
I feel that. I feel that halfway. I think it's always a point of it is your fault, but it's not your fault because like we're
It's your
all
responsibility, but it's not your fault.
whatever semantics you want to use. I hate semantics. Like, okay, nigga, if that makes you feel happy, we both know what we're saying. Uh, but like you, just like how you have this awareness, they also have that same exact awareness. No matter what, we are the same type of people, and we have the ability to change or different. I'm not gonna say it's gonna be as easy for you, but like this is what like comes to like when you're in love with like when this is your family, and like at the end of the day, it's just that simple. This person's coming to me and telling me this is how I feel. I want you to understand me. And I'm telling you, you're not understanding me. At that point, you have two choices. You're like, okay, I'm I'm either stuck in my ways because I don't understand what they're saying, or they're like, or you have three choices. You either think they're crazy, that's like so whatever. You
Based
say
on
you're
your
stuck
own
in your ways.
ego and your own judgments.
Yeah, or you like say like, okay, something I must be missing something. So I gotta step back and like actually realize. And like no matter what, you can't take out your life experiences, but you can like look and say like, okay, this person's different from me and how are they different from me? And is that
Mm-hmm.
okay? And like so at the end of the day, like everyone it's their fault, but it's not their fault. I think everyone always needs to be held to a standard of like responsibility.
I completely agree with that. By the way, like, I want to make like I can see like when I say that about my grandparents, it's like that's what they dealt with, and then they never got over it. Like, then they've spent the rest of their life in that mode. That's their fault, 100%. But like, I can recognize that that's what happened, and so
Yeah.
it's been a lot easier for me to deal with it and like come to terms with the fact that like I don't think they are ever going to understand, and that's because they're not ever going to make an effort to understand. There's nothing I can do in my life to make them want to do that. It has to come from them, and I don't think
Hmm.
that's going to happen. I don't
Yeah.
expect it to happen either, and like I've come to peace with that, whereas that used to
Mhm.
bother me a lot. I used to think that there was something I could do to make them want to change or understand more, but there isn't. People have to take it upon themselves.
Yeah. It's rough, but yeah, it's the best thing. The only thing you can control in your life is yourself. So,
Hmm. One of the questions that you asked me, or kind of topics you wanted to talk about to deal with comfort, was comfort in relationships specifically, and about how is it the job of the person that you're in a relationship with to truly love you for who you are and make you feel comfortable for exactly who you are right now, or is it their job to push you to grow, to change, and like basically get you out of your comfort zone? And so I wanted to hear your thoughts about that just right off the jump.
I'm s- I'm still deciding on this because honestly, one of the best things my boy ever said about his girlfriend, he was like, honestly, she just gives me this peace of mind, like that no other girl has let me felt. So I was like, okay, that's actually really cool, and I completely understand that, like that peace of mind, like I'm just chilling right now. I can be who I am. And I think like and as I'm like going with more relationships more and like looking into that, it's there like there's thought processes of like you're never truly supposed to like own anyone else. This person's supposed to be by your side because they want to walk by your side, but the reason you change isn't because they're like they're trying to force it upon you. It's just that you change because you love them so much that like you just want to become a better person for them. But like so like I guess that's how the best way you're supposed to change. But then I'm like, I don't know. I think I kind of would want someone to like push me a little bit because like I just like a challenge. But I think that might just be depending on like who you are as a person, like how it should work out, and whichever way works best for you and how you want to make your change is how you pick the
Yeah.
person you are in a relationship.
I see it. I think
Okay.
I see it the same, but I also see it differently because only when I have actually truly felt like comfortable as myself for exactly who I am right now, that's helped me want to then change. That's helped me want to be a different person and grow and challenge myself more. But I had to come to that place of comfort for who I am to begin with in order to then really get there, if that makes sense.
Honestly, this is why I like kids a bunch of times because like they're so like untarnished yet, and they don't have all that society brought on situations that shape mold them into this specific type of person they're supposed to be. They're just who they are. And I feel like that's why like I always call people kids, and I get it from Mac Miller because he always says we just some motherfucking kids. But honestly, like I feel like even through like drinking or doing drugs or just like how people are, like I'm like, why do y'all want to be like this adult? Like we always love and talk about like how it is being like a kid and like enjoying all that free spirited and all this hope and dreams we love and just being who we were. Like being an adult sounds so boring in the concept of that. Like I'm okay with being a kid, so like I fuck with like I'm just always calling people kids because like that's you as you are without any of this bullshit they've forced upon you. I think that's like we always are like as we get older we learn what society is, and then like as we grow and become more spiritual we kind of like shut off all of that stuff to be back to who we are again.
It sucks that being an adult means that you have to be so serious. Like I don't know why that happened, but kind of what I was saying is you can just choose not to. Like we can be adults but have that mindset of a kid of I can just do whatever. Like I can have fun. Like this doesn't have to be so serious all the time, but like I mean definitely adults just naturally when you think of an adult, you think of somebody who's serious and kind of has their life together. And I mean if I've learned anything it's that one, adults do not have their lives together one bit, and they're pretending like they do. And I think
Yeah.
that's the problem is that they're trying to pretend like they know these things and they know what they're supposed to do and that they have an idea, but really they don't. And it's in that area right there of pretending like they have it all figured out to make the mind and the ego comfortable because they feel like they're supposed to. But like if they can just admit that maybe we don't know what's up. I don't know what the best thing is for me. I need to take things so seriously all the time. I think that helps them then get over a lot of that and get over the need to be so serious.
Honestly, it's this whole society perpetuated like way we're just brought up that like forces us like it puts us into that box. And like I'm not saying that everyone like not everyone is going to be super spiritual or like be out there, though I feel like everyone can be, but like not everyone's that curious super early, so they're more easily shipped into these boxes. So like and then like we just hear all these stories and this is like how we're supposed to be. And if since everyone else agrees with it, then like you basically just get bullied into agree like being this type of way, because if not you're someone who's on the out group, and a lot of people do not have the mental fortitude to like truly like be an outsider,
Yeah.
because it's not like we're not meant to truly be outsiders in this world. Like we're social creatures, we want to be in that in group. So like it takes like someone, it takes like a true leader to like break out of the box.
hmm
and like show you like, hey, you can just do this. You can do whatever the fuck you want, honestly. And like that's what I think is really important in like life right now. Just like showing people there's another way of living while still technically, because like at the end of the day, the only thing that's what you truly need to do to be an adult is just be responsible. Just pay your bills and shit. Have all that, like, do that.
Yeah.
Then technically, no one can tell you
Or just
and
move
you can
to a
do
fucking
whatever you want.
commune and you won't even have to deal with any of that.
Move to a commune and farm your own. My boy is so obsessed with like building a farm and like having a bunch of like having a whole entire like family
Oh,
of just
one
like
day,
all his
man.
friends and
One
like
day.
building
That
chickens.
is the dream right there, brother.
Yeah, one time, yeah. Honestly, one thing I hate about the spirituality situation, it's become so mainstream. Like I'm like, nigga, you are not doing that. Have you even ever gone to a farm?
I've never once been to a
Do you
farm,
know who you are? That is not
but I have this image in my head of just how amazing it is.
happening. No, I'm not waking up at like 5 a.m. in the morning with a fucking rooster and like going and doing that stuff. Shoot, if I'm gonna do that, I'll pay someone. Hey, you be my farmer. You do that stuff. I'll live there.
And now we're
You
just
doing all that hard
perpetuating
work.
the capitalist system once again, and we're getting right back into it. And then that guy feels the need to wake up at 5 because he needs his paycheck from you.
Nah, he good. He good. He living the land. He's doing his shit. I'm giving him all his stuff. Whatever.
One thing I want to talk about that you brought up
Look, we can't. We're never gonna like.
to deal with like kind of
Go
the
ahead. Keep
bullying
going.
thing is like there's also like indirect bullying. And what I mean by that is it's not bullying the way that you think of it into like, oh, society's telling you to do this. Like, I don't want you to be weird. So, like, I'm going to bully you into being that. But, like, indirect bullying into just not being yourself. Like, for example, when I was a kid, like, I really loved singing. Like, I wanted to be a singer. And, like, when I would sing around my house and stuff, like, nobody would pay any attention and wouldn't, they wouldn't push me to gain those skills and be a better singer or anything like that. But I was good at baseball. So my dad always pushed me to be better at baseball and do things in that way. So, like, in that way, that was indirectly having me give up that part of myself that really wanted to sing. Like, that's what really brought me a lot of joy and happiness. But because I was good at baseball, he then gave me the positive affirmation and the positive praise for that. But like in reality, it's giving up a part of myself in order to receive that positive affirmation. Like, I want the love from my parents, I want the love from the people around me, so I'm going to do the things that they like in order to receive that love. And that's indirect bullying right there, that's causing you to give up these little parts of yourself along the way. And me being a child, I don't realize this, I'm not strong enough to stand up for myself and be like, well, fuck you. But those things add up over time, especially when you're young.
See, that's a rare situation because, like, well, not rare, but that's a hard situation because, like, from what you're saying, he never said anything bad about your singing. He just
Nope.
didn't give you the acceptance and the positive, like, love that you wanted, that you
Yeah.
really wanted him to. Because what you're really seeking is that, like, acceptance from, like, your father. You
Yep,
just wanted, like,
exactly. Like, just the
hey, do you see
acceptance
me?
acceptance
Isn't
for
this
being
cool?
me. Like, see me for me. Like, you don't have to push me, or but like it's just the being seen for who I am aspect. And when you're not seen for who you are and you are seen for these other things that, again, I loved baseball. I don't want to pretend like I don't like baseball. I had a great time playing that too, but that wasn't all of me.
Honestly, that's one of those things you have to like just forgive and like certain parents because like it's not like it
Oh
was their
no, no,
fault
it's
for
it's
doing
it's
that.
it's
Like
not it's not on
that,
purpose.
like
It's not
you
on
probably
purpose either. Like, that's why I call it indirect. Like, it's not, again, like
yeah.
there's a better term for this, but like it's all subconscious. It's based on his own preconceptions about his own life, based on the way that he grew up, that he's trying to make me a better person. Like, he wants me to grow up better than he did. He wants me to have better things. So he's just doing that to the best of his ability. It's not on purpose. It wasn't with any malintent or anything like that. But it does make a difference in how you then show up in the world later in life. And it still needs to be talked about. Like, just because there was no malintent involved doesn't mean that it couldn't have affected me emotionally. He didn't mean to, but it still does. And like, just accepting that truth. Like, I can say, hey, I didn't like this. Like, I don't blame you for it. I don't have, I don't have any ill feelings towards you, but like, it did happen, and pretending like it didn't happen and pretending like it's not a big deal, that just causes a problem. That's just, again, not being able to be comfortable speaking the truth. Like, truth doesn't have to be taken with such malintent. We don't have to take things against us so fucking personally all the time. We can just be like, damn, yeah, you're right. Sorry about that. And just move on with your fucking life. But it's when you're like, oh, like, if, turn that into a conversation like, oh, well, you're ungrateful. I was just trying to do this, and get all defensive and blah, 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 blah. That's when it just creates more animosity towards each other, when you can't come from that place of truth, because people have just way too big of fucking egos.
It's also always about like, which I always have this problem with, which is one thing I think I'm getting better at. It's like how you communicate what you're trying to say. I've always been a matter of fact way, just because I think that same way. Like, look, I'm just telling you this because this is how I feel. But
Yeah.
like, you really do have to say specific things a specific way to make sure someone's guard doesn't automatically come up, and then they're like fighting. You're like, why are we even in this situation? Like, this is not what I wanted from this.
Yeah.
I wish not, but like, whatever. Uh, Also in that same situation, also another thing of like comfort, like that also got to put on yourself. Like, you were seeking that from your dad, but like maybe you should have like been comfortable enough to understand you should have been seeking that from yourself. And if I
Oh,
couldn't get that from my dad or
100%.
my
Oh,
mom,
yeah,
I
that
need to
that that
find that
100% comes from
somewhere
it.
else.
Yeah, it comes from me, like, the whole time. Like, if I truly was comfortable in my own skin and loved myself for who I was, then there are no issues at all. That's where the root of most of anyone's issues ever come from, is our inability to truly accept ourselves for who we actually are, with all this shit on top of us, and just accept ourselves and love ourselves for all of that. But it takes a while to get there.
True. Honestly, like that. Yeah, as I said earlier, that's like been a big part of like knowing me. Like, I guess maybe I don't know how it was, but like I've always been like very like, I like this stuff. I like this stuff. I like this stuff. I
Mhm.
like this stuff. You don't like this stuff? Sucks. I like this stuff though.
I'm gonna do that. I don't care if you don't.
Yeah.
I'm still gonna do it.
I I hope you I hope you come with me. I want to go this way
Yeah.
though. You don't want to go this way? I Damn, that sucks. I'm gonna go that way.
um, nah, man. Well, I wanted to thank you for coming on and having, honestly, just a really fun conversation with me. Um, and I'm really glad you reached out, and
I
I hope we can
enjoyed
stay in
it.
touch, dude. Thank you, everybody, for listening, and thank you again to Daveon for coming on the Trip Sitting Podcast. I hope everybody enjoyed, and if you have any ideas or thoughts or concerns or questions or whatever, please feel free to reach out to me either on social media or shoot me an email at tripsittingblog@gmail.com, and let's just get in touch and let's talk. Thanks again, everybody, and we'll see you again on the next episode.